Could you do the roll call, please?
Commissioner Robbins,
Here.
Commissioner Rushton. Present. Commissioner Bailey. Here. Commissioner Wessel,
Here.
Commissioner Sulis Little,
She will be here in 5-10 minutes.
Commissioner Algeier. Here. Commissioner Lautner. Present.
Thank you. Is there any public comment this morning? Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner comments this morning.
I guess I just need to say that our hearts are with those people in Texas. And with the hearts of the American people. I just want to say that I think our hearts are with the people of Texas right now. And I hope with the hearts of the Senate that they might act on background checks.
Any other commissioner comments? Well, I have one. I just want to really thank Matt for his work between our last meeting and this meeting. And he sent out, we received from Chet the brochure, and it makes us deservedly so, I think, look like a pretty good county. And beautiful photos and beautiful stuff. So our purpose today is the discussion of potential action on the county administrator hiring process. And Matt's here to start by reviewing what he's prepared.
Absolutely, thank you. And just reaction to your counties or to your comments. My pleasure, and Leelanau County is an exceptional county and is deserving of exceptional descriptions. It's somewhat easy for me, but certainly there are items in here that that you'll want to discuss, but wanted to make sure that it was in your hands prior to this meeting. I'm happy to go through the document however you deem fit, answer any questions. My questions to the board are highlighted in yellow throughout the document. And I would also say, and I mentioned this in the email, that I'll be sure to have someone with stronger copy editing skills than me go through and make sure that there's proper English and spelling and so on and so forth. So I don't know how you would like to go through it, or if you'd like to go through the yellow items first, however the board so chooses.
I have a question. Do we have the third busiest airport in Michigan?
Yes.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's Detroit, Grand Rapids, then Traverse City.
Well, any thoughts from commissioners on how we ought to proceed with our time this morning? And we need to address the position description, the brochure. We need to talk about the job description that we still need to make sure we have. And we need to reaffirm the timetable. Right, Matt?
Correct.
So questions or suggestions to Matt?
I guess it would, being you've been in the, now people know you're kind of guiding us through this process. Are you hearing of interest on the street or off the street?
Yeah. I've never been asked that. Yes, there are some local, I believe that there will be some local candidates, maybe as a way, a qualified local candidates.
Qualified local candidates.
Yes.
Okay, that's
And when I say local, that is using the assumption of the less than 21 miles
sure.
from Leelanau County.
Okay. Well, the reason I said that, because I was pushing for an accelerated timeline, and then as we went through stuff last month, I thought, no, it's just not maybe prudent to do that.
Right.
So I'm glad to hear there's local candidates, because I'd like for us to take our time, especially in interviewing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's good, because we have a lot of local candidates that should show up in person to interview, and that would be good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there will be a couple.
figure out where I am.
Well, let's, if it's okay with people, let's start with the brochure, because that's the easiest job. Where are we on what Matt's put together and the highlighted questions that he's included?
And maybe just to start out with, if you don't mind, if we could just go through page by page, and if there are any strong objections to any of the verbiage or something that should be added, happy to pursue that. As it begins on the first page, just it's a brief snapshot of Leelanau County. Oftentimes, these types of documents start out with that specifically for potential applicants who might not have familiarity with the community, particularly when you're looking at a national talent pool. So this was my best attempt at describing the county from the lens of a potential applicant in a one-page format. It would be my intent to include a hyperlink to the formal job description on this page. That's something that this group will also have to approve. Now, the good part with that is that there's an existing document out there, and I'm at least right now working under the assumption that there's not going to be a lot of change to it, but certainly that will be the decision of the board. So wondering if there's any questions about the existing content on page 1 or subtractions or additions that you'd like to see.
Maple City and Omina are not mentioned as our little villages.
Sure, these are important things.
That's not a village, is it?
No, but
No.
our township's not mentioned.
I mean, there really are only 3
Omina is
incorporated.
not officially a village, so.
Isn't it?
No.
Okay.
So this is the part we try to demonstrate geographic equity, and I would agree that short of including all local units of government, that just to be able to include those that are truly villages as opposed to CDPs, that would probably be good. But I can include everyone too.
How about, do you mention Shawtytown here?
No, we do make mention of the tribe, but
Yeah,
The reason I mentioned Elma Township is we're on the cusp between Grand Traverse County and Leelanau County.
mhm,
And if people are looking for a place to live, they might have better luck
mhm.
down in Elma. So I was wondering if we could include that.
I don't disagree. Traverse City, as everyone here knows, does part of that is in Leelanau County and in Elmwood Township. That there's
People outside don't know that.
yeah, but technically there are a couple hundred city residents that are also county residents. So it's certainly reasonable to me. No issue with it.
other thoughts on how much detail we give to our various communities. We could list all of them, and the list is very long. I just want to make sure that Northport was there, and Melinda was concerned about Cedar. We made the cut.
So I'm good.
I think from my perspective, for what it's worth, if I were to look at this, what this is intended to demonstrate is that Leelanau County is an aggregation of many different places. It's not like a lot of counties where there's a place. So as an example, within the region that in Kalkaska County, that there really isn't much beyond in terms of a settlement. There's South Boardman, but that Kalkaska and most counties are defined by that central city. But in Leelanau County, you don't have that. So it's intended to provide that flavor, not to provide an exact definition.
And you have the four corners.
Yeah,
So.
but we can add. But I did fail to mention. Maple City is a unit of government that I did miss.
That's okay, because you mentioned the strongest. You mentioned the strongest defined villages, and I think that's important.
I'm not sure we satisfied Deb's question on Elmwood Township, Greeleyville.
If I may,
Well, I was just gonna say, we have a lot of growth that's coming to our area.
Mhm.
Especially down on the waterway,
Absolutely.
and it's the door to Leelanau County, you might say,
Mhm.
so.
I don't disagree with that observation, and certainly the data backs that up. So
it could really be slipped in either in the paragraph that calls out communities, or the bottom one and mention, that even the annex portion of Elmwood Township as part of Traverse City. And
Mhm.
whatever word you would want in front of it, the growing or increasing growth in Elmwood Township via the annex, especially the annexed Traverse City portion, something like that.
It's the door to Leelanau.
It's a gateway. I think
It's
they're
a
called a
gateway, yeah, it's the gateway to Leelanau County. It's a simple,
Yeah.
I would remind Deb that it's the gateway by road, but Northport is the gateway by sea.
And Empire is the gateway by the coast. So I know you're proud of them.
well,
That's wonderful.
Elmwood Township gets forgotten a lot in Leelanau County in many different aspects. And we've got 2 commissioners that sit on this board that represent Elmwood Township.
So you've heard that, Matt, we're going to adjust that.
I feel confident that I can appropriately weave in Elmwood Township.
First, I want to say, I liked what you've written.
Good.
In fact, I thought it made it sound really good, which we should.
Mhm.
A couple of one a question, and the other is looking at the agricultural side, which would be on your first page, second paragraph,
Mhm.
first paragraph, I'm sorry. You're pointing to something that is unique in our county, the wineries, breweries, and ciders. We're also the biggest cherry producing area.
Mhm.
And since Traverse is known as the cherry capital, a lot of things are named cherry.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's worthwhile mentioning our largest crop is cherries.
Sure.
And then I was just wondering on that same page, but shift down to the last paragraph on the left-hand side. This is an apt description. It's a little, part of it's a little tongue in cheek. We have high educational attainment, absolutely great. Above average median income, I'm assuming you're using the 48,000 figure, which is average median income.
Yeah,
for this
yeah.
area. And below average poverty rate.
Mhm.
Is that true?
Mhm.
Good, that's a good thing.
It's just not Alice.
It's not Alice though, and
Yeah. That's
this is a sales document.
I know. But
I'm going to be very honest with all of you on that. Is that you can paint all sorts of pictures.
Yeah,
from
no, but that's a good
yeah.
word. And the above average median home price is the only thing that made me smile.
Yeah.
Way above.
In orchards are mentioned in that paragraph also.
They are mentioned.
And my view on that is really, I believe it would be a shared view, is that that's a metric of challenge, but it's also a metric of success. That it does demonstrate that this is a place that people want to live. But certainly at an operational level, it's a significant challenge to the county too, because you don't want it to be a barrier. So,
Well, I think you really highlighted the fact that we're agricultural as well as we're many other things too. So it was well written. I liked it.
thank you.
Melissa, Rick, any thoughts, any questions on this first page?
Well, I like the first page, so I think we're beyond that. Let's go to the next page.
I mean, I was gonna argue that we should put Fulch on there. Fulch is
How much Parents Landing? I
was
get
a
it,
community
right?
one.
That's one of the things I like about northern Michigan. There's all these places, old lumber towns, things like that, that used to be, yeah, yeah. Ouch, yeah,
Well, ready to go to page 2?
yes,
There are no yellow highlights on page 2, but we can still make suggestions.
absolutely.
Love your winter months bring joy. I thought our median age was higher. I thought we were getting close to 60.
It's the latest data I have, and that represents the second highest in the state
Right,
after
That's-
Ontonagon.
right.
Your median age is higher for different reasons than Ontonagon, but it is the second highest in the state.
Yeah,
You
I
know-
think Lois said we've got 40%, and it might be 41% now, at the age of 60 and following that figure.
Yeah.
But it's not the median age.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Right.
You know, to the winter months, joy to those seeking peace and serenity, you might slip in our numerous bike trails also afford a plethora of cross-country skiing.
Sure.
There's lots of
Winter
cross-country
activities.
skiing on our bike trails.
Mhm.
In fact, did you mention our bike trails somewhere here?
There's some
There's mention of
parks.
trails in a general sense in the beginning.
I think it somehow, if you could stick in that we have some significant bike trails.
Mm.
We have the Tart and we have the Heritage Trail.
Mhm.
So bikers are starting to come here. And
You know-
so then there's a lot of cross-country skiing in the winter.
Our administrator's not gonna have time to bike,
Pardon?
unless he bikes to work. Right, Laurel?
Melinda?
Honestly, I think we could go on and on all day and find numerous things we could add. However, in this day and age, when the first thing a person is going to do, even perhaps before reading this, is going to look Leelanau County up on the web. It's all here. And I go to conferences all over the United States, and it is rare that someone hasn't heard of Leelanau County or northern lower Michigan. So I just think, we should concentrate more on.
Page 3, the ideal
Yeah,
candidate?
yeah, that's what I think.
Everybody
because-
okay with going to page 3?
But please mention the bike trails. That's a-
I'm happy to weave in that. Won't be a problem.
Okay, probably the most important page in this document is the ideal candidate, and let's start with any commissioner comments or questions or concerns on this.
If I may, before you
Yes.
begin, we did release this page to staff. I received 2 responses back to that. And I was able, it was, both comments were more of just iterations of what's already in here. I'll say it that way. But just so you're aware as a board that staff was provided the opportunity and some did participate.
So you're gonna have somebody proof this, so you'll catch the 2 times in the first semester that there's no space between words.
Yes,
I'm sure.
yeah, the copy editor, someone
Will
much
catch
smarter
that.
than me will go through this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Other comments about the ideal candidate? Melinda?
I know the one comment, which I thought was a good one, mentioned, they must be a good communicator. Have we done, do we have that in there?
I'm certain that
Or is it just
it is in there.
kind of understood? that obviously that have to be a good communicator. Although we had one once that was not a good communicator, that was bad.
When I'm happy to go through, I'm certain it's in there, but
Is it up in there?
but we can put a greater emphasis on it, absolutely.
Listen to the importance importance of communicating. Okay, listens, yeah, that's probably good enough. Thank you.
I love this stuff. You easily discourage.
Any other thoughts on this page, or do we want to?
Can we just take a couple minutes to just review the page?
Sure. Let's do that. Okay, any thoughts on page 3 and the first part of page 4? Melinda?
Excuse me. The only thing I could think of is perhaps, and even, well, you can see where it could be slipped in, top paragraph on the left, maybe on page 4. Would it be fair to say that that having knowledge and understanding of Robert's rules, since we follow Robert's rules, would be an asset? So if they're not from Robert's rules, it could be, I think that could guide this board, especially board chairman, if they're up on Robert's rules, if we can stop something before we do something we don't realize we're doing wrong. It's happened in the past, and that and perhaps our board rules to guide the board. He is our employee, and he or she. So if just ask the board if they think that's perhaps a skill we might look for to help, because there's turnover on the board, and it could be helpful, I think.
Does that get covered in part with
The analytics.
the individual will have a working knowledge of Michigan County government? And then it goes on to say demonstrated experience working with boards. I would imagine anybody who's working with boards would have to. But not necessarily.
Not necessarily, and we do mention Robert's rules in our board, but we do follow Robert's rules.
So
It's very easy to I don't disagree, because generally counties are more formal than other boards. So that does make sense from my perspective.
And we can also include that in the job description under requirements.
Mhm.
Yes, that's a good idea too.
Other thoughts on this? Any gaps, any disagreements?
Personally, I think it's targeted for what we're looking for. It hits all the highlights. It's a clear understanding that we want somebody that will support our staff, understand the responsibilities of staff. I think that's an important part for the administrator. Learning how to work at the board, following the rules, Robert's rules, and so on and so forth. I pretty much think you hit the ball in the
Thank you.
field or right field or whatever.
The base hit at least.
Basically, yeah.
At least the base hit, yeah.
Isn't there a movie waiting for the dough or something?
Any disagreement with what Deb has just said? Are we ready to move on?
Yes, yes, this will be a perfect person. I just can't wait to see it. Yeah.
I look forward to meeting them.
So are we.
You want to lead us in discussion of the next section?
Yes, so on page 4, that's where there are some decisions by this board. Specifically around compensation, that I know that was discussed again when we last met. And then also what I have seen, not necessary by any stretch of the imagination, but that there might be advantages to stating what an ideal contract term may be. And maybe if the board is not comfortable with that right now, but if there's an intent, that gives a known playing field to the prospective applicant. But again, I've seen it both ways.
Say that a little bit clearer.
Yeah, that as part of the compensation and benefits section, that there are, pardon me, I'm getting some feedback. There are some of these marketing packets that I have seen that have included what the general parameters of the ideal contract would look like. It doesn't mean that you're held to that, but it gives the prospective applicant a general understanding of what he or she might be looking at with regards to when you get to the negotiation process. Again, you could do it either way. You could be silent on it, or you can include it.
In other words, let's say, if we were thinking that we wanted the administrator on a probationary period for 1 year,
Right.
what you're saying is that needs to be disclosed at this time.
It doesn't need to be. I'm saying that if the board has a specific direction that they would like, that they're thinking that they would like to pursue with regards to a contract, and just to continue upon what you're saying, that a 3-year contract is ideal with 1 year probationary period, something of that, but subject to negotiation. But again, if the board doesn't have that coming into this, then it might be best just to remain silent.
And maybe performance reviews every year.
Yes, exactly. Going back to my opinion on something like this is, it's a sales document, but it's also a document that can act as a precursor to what you assume will be some questions from any reasonable applicant. And I think that would be a question that would come up from any reasonable applicant.
So we would say that something along the lines of will likely be a 3-year contract, so that it leaves out a little bit open if that person says, well, you know, I want a 5-year contract with a 1-year.
Right.
We can say, well, we can
Yeah.
negotiate it.
All subject to negotiation, but it gives a general sense of where the board is currently with regards to this position.
So is the 3-year contract standard? Do you know that for an administrator up here?
I don't know that. I'm not gonna say I know that,
Find
but
out.
yeah, I could certainly find out. And if the board is looking for something that fits within a standard or a median within the region, I can find that number out.
I
Yeah.
think there needs to be some level of security for them, especially if they're going to move into this area.
We could leave it maybe general and talk a multi-year contract with 1 year of probation to be negotiated, and then
Like that?
any other thoughts on the terms of the contract? Is everybody comfortable with Matt doing something about multi-year,
Yeah.
3 to 5, 1 year probation?
That gives us something to negotiate with,
Right. So something just general?
and it gives them an idea that we're not looking for a one-year term.
I think that's advantageous to the county, yes.
I like Commissioner Wagner's term is negotiable, will be negotiable. That's fair.
Okay, the tougher question is the salary range, the paragraph above. We had talked about 90 to 110, I think, didn't we, at one time, 90 to 110, and then we said 90 to 100, and then Rick, I think, mentioned in one of our meetings, 90 is kind of low. So let's have discussion. Deb, you kick it off.
Well, my first question is, in looking at Chet's wage today with his, let's say, anticipated 3.5% raise, where does that bring, where would his salary be January 1 of 2023? I don't know if anybody can answer that
I think
today.
it was 95 or something.
Well, our experts here.
I can go find out.
Yeah, so that would be a nice starting point for us, because technically speaking, I don't think we're gonna get much below that price.
95.
95.
The 4 sheets that
Because
were
they-
handed
yeah,
out had FICA MERS and increases listed.
Oh, you know, I think you're right.
It's 92 now.
I've always had a little bit of trouble with paying an incoming one more than you paid a very successful outgoing one. I mean, I think that it sends the wrong message. Yes, Melinda.
I will say this, because not that I'm really excited about having to pay a whole lot for a new administrator, even more than we are. Just to be fair, though, in some ways, and I joked with Chet about this, is we had Chet where we wanted him. Chet came off a career, he had his full retirement. He came to work here, he had his health insurance, that was another benefit for him. He already had a house here in Leelanau, and this is just something he really wanted to do, so that is something to consider. We knew Chet wasn't going anywhere, so we really didn't have to pay him more. It was just it was a real win-win for us for 10 years.
The other thing is, I think you have to know about what you just said, the market's changed market in the last 10 years. And now it is definitely a labor market, not a management market. So that, I think, drives the starting base cost too.
Is that one of our candidates?
Let me put it this way. No.
Okay.
You know, looking at this sheet that was passed out, it looks like the 90,000 didn't have but the next one, the one for 98 does have it shows what it would be. Oh, that's how it got there, yeah, it shows the 3.25 increases.
Well, I think if I remember right, Rick, when you commented on it, you said that you thought we would welcome bid, and you said, I think I remember 95 to 110.
I was going off of last Eagle.
Yeah.
Because we were pretty close on comparables. And they're at 93 to 160.
How does that sound, Matt? 95 to 110?
This is to the board's decision. I mean, I could provide examples of it being, a range being lower than that for some counties, and I can certainly provide examples where it's higher than that in other counties. So, I would say that would put you, in the bell curve, as it were. But as I've also mentioned in the past, housing is going to be an issue. But I don't know, to be very transparent, short of a much higher number, I don't know how housing isn't an issue.
Can we structure the salary in a different way? If we were to reduce the salary, however, provide a stipend for housing, maybe a one-time stipend for housing, would that serve us better? Because I'm just throwing it out there. If we're uncomfortable with going that high, because there is a housing problem. Have you seen that happen?
Certainly, and that is within the process, there's talk about transportation and lodging reimbursement. There's also oftentimes, whether public sector or the private sector, there are opportunities for relocation costs, and relocation costs are kind of a generalized a number, but that's not unusual by any means.
A reminder that we did have discussion on this board, that we agreed that we could not ever negotiate something higher than our upper range. So if we think 110 or whatever number we set isn't going to do it, we need to increase that range and all agree that we don't have any ability to pay more than we posted. No matter what the candidate, even if Eric Carlson does apply.
I see us in a market where we're in a lot of competition with other opportunities for employment in this area. So, there are probably, maybe 20 jobs and 10 applicants. So, we're competing. Yeah.
In the salary range?
Well, I think so.
Yeah.
There's
I
administration and well, you could tell us too. Who's looking for employees of this caliber?
Yeah, I think, well, we know
No?
that specific to a county administrator, that
Right.
there is, I'm not gonna call it a neighboring county, but an up north
Otsego.
county in Otsego. So that is a competitor.
one.
That's one. And in looking at other Northwest counties, that there has been some turnover in the last, I'm just kind of thinking through my head, the last 3-4 years, we've had a number of new administrators. So yeah, I don't, I hope it doesn't sound like I'm dancing here, because it's not my intent. All I'm saying is that what you're putting forward, or the generalized numbers, and you're going to have to come up with specifics, but what I'm hearing in terms of a general range is certainly within the bell curve of county administrators out there. That said, there are some headwinds that are very general, meaning that it's a tight labor market, so there's greater competition, and then there are headwinds that are more specific to the county, specifically around housing. So now, when you put in, if we did adjust the residency requirement, when you have that in there, the housing piece does become less of an issue if the board chooses to keep that. But if the prospective applicant and or the board does seek residency, or at least have preference for its residency, that's more difficult.
Linda?
Just something I'm thinking about. I was going to look at our timeline again, but worst case scenario, we get a few candidates, they think it's too low. They're not happy with it, so they won't take the job. Timeline wise, all the hard work is done, right?
Mhm.
Worst case scenario, we take another 3 months, right? Don't rush it, put it back out there with a different salary range. The candidates that did apply may or may not still be interested, but it would probably bring in a new pool of candidates. But I don't think we have to really rush too much. Chad has said the end of the year, but he's also said that we're happy to help out too.
And certainly Commissioner Lautner knows this better than I, but as I recollect, you were without an administrator for 6-7 months potentially before Chet was hired, right?
A couple of different times.
I suggest that we set the upper range to 115 so we can be competitive. Yes, we could start this process all over for another 3 months, but I don't see why we should do that. And time is relevant. I think we need to be competitive. And our housing it's expensive to live here.
Well,
And
Lois, and then
extending the mileage with gas prices, it doesn't, OPEC's not gonna give us a break on gas prices for a very long time. So extending the mileage, it might be nice, but then you're driving an hour to get to work, potentially.
Lois,
Yeah, so anybody have a house to rent, so we can just rent that house and hold on to it? I mean, that's not an unreasonable thing. If you see a good house for rent, just sign the contract and hold on to it. Because if somebody's gonna transfer in here, and even if you're saying that it's a possible probationary 1 year, you're gonna wanna rent rather than purchase a house. So what do you think? Any rentals?
yeah,
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, right.
But, I can actually see our administrator offering a room. I mean, his wife is out west. So I think we should negotiate with our current administrator to see if
I'm
he'd
quite
be
sure.
willing.
His house comes with the position, I think. He just isn't aware of that yet.
did you have a serious comment?
I understand. I hope Chet was listening. No, I kind of like the idea of what Melinda had, but I really do think that we should consider, the lodging. Providing a stipend for lodging or transportation, because that will offset the cost for somebody that's coming into the area. When they look at the salary and say, well, the other thing is we can build in raises over time to increase to a level. We don't know what how this person's gonna perform year one. We'll have a little bit more information. So if we write a contract that says beginning wage starts at 95 and the second year, it'll go to 105 and then the third year will go to 115. That gives us a little bit more flexibility, and it gives them, they will know what to expect as far as the income, and that can be negotiated, really. I mean, there's a lot of different ways we can do this, but to go out there and throw out $115,000, although I know we're in a tight market and we're competing, we may be able to create something that someone else doesn't offer over time. If somebody really wants to come to our community, I'm just throwing mud on the wall here so we can think outside the box.
Melinda. Oh, I missed Patricia.
So mine is a question relating to just thinking about the recruitment pool. Clearly, people who are in government in various, they might be in state, they might be in other counties, either on from their township. But what other, when you talked about executives, I'm assuming executives from major organizations might be looking at this as well as executives from corporations. What is their salary range like? In our northern Michigan area, we pick out first organizations.
Yeah.
What is kind of a range that those fall in, and then if we look at corporate people?
I mean, yeah, so that, the public sector has historically and continues to be less than the private sector with regards to salaries. That usually, the stereotype is that public sector is more benefit heavy than salary heavy. So that's certainly a consideration specific to what you're talking about with regards to a very real potential demographic that exists in Leelanau County is that, as everyone here knows, that you have very successful individuals that have may have already a homestead within the county and are working at X place, whether that's in the public sector or the private sector. And they may see this as an opportunity to transition to that homestead to a more year-round opportunity. I think that's a unique competitive advantage that you have as a county that not every county has. So yeah, going back to when we talked about the educational attainment within the county and you know, demographic of people who are in the county either year round, but that also applies to those that are here seasonal. So there's a niche there, a potential niche.
I guess I would prefer us leaving out anything about moving or housing expenses and wait and see what it looks like as far as the candidate goes. Because if we have a local candidate, they're gonna say, well, gee, we're gonna offer moving expenses, so, you know, they might negotiate a higher salary or something instead. Because we do have a lot of housing stock being built in this 21-mile radius right now. There's a lot being built, and a lot of it's gonna be over the next couple of years. So I think that's something to consider. If we leave it out, I think we would perhaps not have to figure out what to do if they're two things. One, they're local and they wouldn't qualify. And two, what if the probationary period doesn't work out and we've given them a housing stipend? I suppose depending on how the clause is written, that if it's probationary period and they're let go, is there a severance cost? So the housing would come out of the severance, or is there no severance because it was probationary? I don't know. That's all in details of how we're going to write it. So I just think that maybe could be negotiated.
We don't have to put it in and to do it, but we don't
Right.
tie down. Rick, and then I'd like to make a comment.
Okay, on the probationary, what is the standard out there?
I think to be able to say that, and I'm just, what I grabbed from this conversation and what I anticipate is that the ideal contract length would be multi-year, but with a 1-year probationary period contingent upon,
Is that standard?
yeah, about a positive job review or.
Has that been our past practice too, 1 year?
Honestly,
You didn't have one
I
with
don't
Chad.
remember a probationary period.
This is the first time ever,
Yeah. And when I say probationary, maybe it's better to say that a multi-year contract with annual reviews in place to ensure performance and accountability, something like that.
I was just reading the one that Chet sent us on Otsego. There's nothing in in there
Yeah.
as far as probation.
I do know that at the airport, there was a probationary period for an administrator when he first came on. And with that, after that first probationary period, he was hired in at a certain wage. And then after the first year, when his performance was where it needed to be, it was satisfactory to the board. The board then had built into the contract specific wage increases for the next 2 years to bring his wage up to the going rate, you might say. Instead of looking at a 3%, raise, it was just specific to ensure that he was doing the job that the board wanted him to do. So that was the only reason for the probationary, that we were starting out low and increase his wages. So that over the course of 3 years, it totaled, the end year wage totaled it was equal for the 3 years, but it just came at a later time. I don't know if I explained that very well.
Yes, Rick.
I guess what I'd look at on probationary is, if I was one of the applicants, is like, do I want to stick my neck out, buy a place?
So, yeah,
And, no different than our deputies, they're on probation for a year. A lot of times they don't buy it for that first year.
well, the other thing is, can they buy
Well, yes,
what's available?
and even to rent.
Right, well, we know about that, don't we?
Darcy has prepared an overview of Chet's. You want to speak to it,
Sure.
Darcy?
Yeah, real quick. The first line where I have salary and car allowance, and my hastiness didn't take the car allowance off. I separated that on the next line. So I did a loaded wage for each year, or for each individual married and then a full family. So you can see what the total cost would be if it's based on the 3.25% for next year.
Darcy, did you prepare the 4-page that we received there? It was at the clerk's office.
It was clerk's office.
So there's quite a discrepancy between the 95,000 figure, the income and the totals are different.
I haven't seen what you're looking at,
Is it
so.
the car allowance?
No,
Because she said she
no,
has-
that's below, that was.
Yeah, but she has it in here, she said.
But she took it out here.
Oh,
No, she took it
she
out.
left it
But
in.
that would make it even lower. The salary was 129,684. This one's one with the car allowance, 122,836. So it would be even lower, bigger difference, discrepancy between the two. Where I see the difference comes in is Blue Cross Blue Shield. Also, FICA. There's just differences.
Yeah, I don't know what you're looking at, so I'd have to, and I did this very hastily, so.
Yeah, I
This is the one, right?
No.
This is up to date. This is
Yeah.
accurate.
This is what I just did real quick.
But
Yeah, I think the relevant thing here is the starting salary, and you're right, you did this really fast.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'd like to.
But what counts as the starting?
I'd like to put my thoughts out there. I don't like being lower than Gaylord. I'd rather live in Leelanau than Gaylord, and I would be very comfortable with the range on the Otsego County Administrator, as long as we understand that you don't automatically get that 115. That's only for really prime candidates, and we'll negotiate that.
I would agree.
So, did everybody hear what I said?
No,
I would,
sorry.
I think we need, this is just me, and after I listen to people talk, I think we need to have the same range as Gaylord, as long as we understand that we do not need to, nor will we, go to the top of the range unless we have an outstanding candidate.
And what was that, Segos again? You said
You said
93 to
Gaylord.
116?
That's not super.
Yeah, Otsego. So that's 90 to 115.
116, if I recall.
Yeah,
I would support that.
That's what I remember.
Chuck was gonna be making 95, so you want to start with 95.
I think that's what we said.
95 to 116.
Yes.
Everybody, we ought to, on that, we ought to make sure everybody gets a chance to express their concern or support, and then we'll we'll take a vote on that.
I believe we need to be competitive, I would support it.
Do we have a motion for the salary range?
I would make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Will someone state that motion again, please?
That I make a motion that the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners establish a salary range of 95,000 to 116,000 for a potential administrator position.
And it's been seconded. Deb, you want to speak to that?
I was just, if we get a candidate, an exceptional candidate for $116,000, let's say, but they come back to us and say, you know, housing's a problem, I want a housing stipend. What are we gonna do? Do we have the opportunity at that time to negotiate that?
You know, if you need a housing stipend, you need $200,000 in this county.
I'm talking about not necessarily a housing stipend, but say transportation, if they want transportation. Any issue like that, do we need to have that conversation before or during the time we set the salary?
My assumption, but I'll let Matt confirm that, but my assumption is they're two quite separate issues. So we first need to do the range,
Okay,
and then we need some discussion on what we're willing to negotiate.
okay,
Yeah, that would be my opinion, is that, as I understand the motion and the discussion, it's specific only to the salary. All other benefits are negotiable and per your ultimate decision.
I don't think we should publicly state what we're willing to do.
And I, for what it's worth, and it's easy to fall in this rabbit hole, but you don't want to negotiate with yourselves right now on a hypothetical.
Right.
So there is a motion on the floor, 95 to 116. Any other discussion? All those in support, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Now the issue of negotiations. I believe Matt's cautioned us and Melinda cautioned us. I think we must just say we're going to be willing to negotiate, but I don't think we can have the conversation about what we're willing to negotiate. Because that then will be what we give. And I think a lot depends on who the candidate is and what their circumstances are and
Whether it's
how
necessary.
badly we want them and what the other candidates are. So would you be comfortable not talking about what we're willing to negotiate?
yes, I would be, and I was hoping that we would address this in some way, that we would have a consensus. That's why I kept pushing the question.
Thank you. And just one last reminder that we agreed as a board that we will not individually negotiate or talk about salary. That we will do that as a board, and we will not go higher than the range. Correct, everybody? Good. Well, now you have your range.
Yeah.
And you have your contract term.
Excellent.
And how does it apply? I'll let,
Yeah, before it wasn't, well, I guess it can be a decision point, but you will note on that residency that Chet did provide that court case that he mentioned. So that 21 miles represents basically law in terms of a maximum. You can, interestingly enough, I didn't know that this was actually a case with a firefighter in Traverse City. So it has its roots in northern Michigan, but 21 miles is the number.
I thought that number was 20.
I think it says less than 21 miles.
Is that from the county line or from Sutton's Bay?
So this is the other interesting piece from the county line. As I read it, you might want to ask a legal opinion, but as I understand it, it's the jurisdictional boundary, not county seat.
Right.
Because I'm 20 miles.
Yeah, so it pushes
No,
it.
not by birth.
Maybe our HR director could work with Chet to get a legal opinion on that, just to be careful.
I thought it was sent to us already.
See, I would question that. Darcy is being at his public safety response time versus the county administrator.
You have to look at it again, but I believe it applied to public sector jobs requiring residency within their jurisdiction.
Still, I think it's, if it's radius, it's not road miles. So
Yes, it's not road miles, and as I read it, and I would, I am not a lawyer, but I would read it from the county line.
Darcy, would you work with Chad and get an official ruling on that so that we know that when we meet next week to firm up the checklist? Questions should be directed, are you comfortable to inviting candidates to contact any board member as long as we understand that board members represent the board and not as an individual? And our only role is to answer questions about the county. But we won't do anything beyond that. Are you comfortable doing that?
They can call us
If we list,
to talk about the county.
So there's a number of different things you can do here, if I may, that the first and foremost, it would be my suggestion that application questions are to a Leelanau County representative. Now, whether that's a board member, a specific board member, board chair, or county staff, that's your decision. A way that I have seen an equitable process with regards to this is that there's a time period by which that you'll accept questions, and then answers to those questions will be posted on X date. That way you have a greater opportunity to speak with one voice and for that voice to be consistent. So just as an example, that if your deadline is July 15th, that you say questions to this position to be received no later than just arbitrarily June 20, and all questions will be posted on the Leelanau County site by June 30, something of that sort.
I think that's a real problem. Individual board members answering questions, because that person may call you and then they may call me and get two different answers. So I think that is a terrible idea.
I agree.
I have lots of terrible ideas.
I've had 6 today.
Melinda and then Rick.
I concur. I think we should have one person, and I think that person ought to be someone even, well, they may call Chad and say, hey, Chad, administrator, possibly the administrator, but I would say like either Laurel or Darcy at HR should be able to answer pretty much any basic questions. But yeah, because I want to give it, I don't think we should be talking to candidates, period, unless it's all done formally. We all hear the same questions, we all have the same answer.
A good idea would be for it to go through our HR department.
I didn't hear that.
I said a good idea would to direct these through our HR department. That's why we hired an HR person.
On the other hand, it could be just to call the administrator's office, and then whoever's available right then. There are 3 people we could talk to. Oh, Laurel's got an opinion.
Well, I just think you want a consistent message, so it should be through HR.
Thank you.
And if they do call our office, that's an easy, I will just transfer them to Darcy.
Well, and certainly they can call Chet, because if you were looking for a job, you'd want to talk to Chet, but he's not representing the board when he does that. He's representing himself.
But if they call here and
Excuse
want
me. Thank you.
Rick?
That's what I was gonna suggest is, they just go through HR, they go through chat, between those two, and then they come back to us.
You comfortable with that, Darcy?
I am.
So that the contact information will go to Darcy. If they want to talk to the administrator, obviously they can, but he's not representing the board. And we will refrain from talking to candidates prior to the selection process. Is that, are everybody comfortable with that? Now, it may be that some of us know somebody that's applying. So it was, if we decide not to talk to anybody, we have to be consistent with that. So does this board agree that we are not going to talk to candidates before the process of selecting who we're going to interview?
Sure. I'm fine with that, and I agree that it shouldn't be board members talking. I think the administrator is our board representative right now, and will be until he is succeeded by another individual. So I think we should encourage, people to call the administrator if we're not going to invest that function with him, but you probably just want to answer all those phone calls and take questions, and Darcy can do that. But at least I think he needs to be in the mix.
And I know he's been contacted already by
Sure.
people, and of course he would. Everybody comfortable with that? The board role and Darcy's role and the candidate role and Chet's role? Yes, Deb?
Going back to the 21 mile, we did get an attorney opinion last Thursday, and MCL 15.602. The law permits residency requirements of less than 20 miles from the nearest boundary of the public employer. And you're right, the 20 miles is a straight line distance from the residence to the nearest boundary, but it is 20, 21.
Thank you, Deb. Okay, we are now, yes.
May I ask for clarification? So on the how to apply section, what I heard is that in terms of application, cover letter and resume, that is to go to Darcy. And questions should be directed to Darcy and Chet. Is that correct?
Darcy, I believe.
Darcy.
Just Darcy.
I say questions should be directed to Darcy. What I'm thinking is, what I took that to be is an understanding, as Chet's the administrator, he may get some calls that I don't know that we can, he's on his way out the door. I don't know if we can stop that.
She's our best ambassador.
Yeah, but I just want, I think my fear was that he could fall down the rat trap of, well, hey, how is your, who are your troublemakers on the board commissioners say, to use ourselves for example, and I just, HR is not going to do that because HR's got a position of being, so.
Yeah, I see HR handling the basic questions. There's going to be some basic questions about the position. But if I were applying, I would want to call Chet and just say, tell me a little bit more about the job. And that's something HR can't do. And so I think it's important to make sure that Chet does get these questions as well. If there are questions like that, I'm sure Darcy would say, I think you want to talk to the administrator about this. So that we don't block that flow of important information, because he's going to be tactful. He's not going to say who's the most troublemaker on the board.
Oh, he might.
Just don't call him on
I
Friday.
think we have some consensus. I initially said this because I was sensitive to the fact that you didn't want one of us, or chair, being the contact person. It's the board is hiring. And Chet, obviously, we want him to help us, and Darcy. So I think we're set, aren't we?
So Darcy's email and both of these empty spots, to be clear. Okay. Great.
And Darcy, maybe you can do a special email address just for this. Administrator serve chat. Leelanau.gov.
Something like that. That's a good idea. So just-
Yeah, thank you.
Then we're on the page 5, and I'm looking at the clock because there is a health board meeting that we have this afternoon at noon, or 1.
One for me,
One.
but I've got to,
So we
I've got to
need
be
yeah.
in Traverse City by
right.
12:30.
On page 4, do we have to pick a date? No, it's July 15th. Is
That was the date that was agreed to at the last meeting.
Okay, so we're gonna set up a separate email account for those email cover letters to come to, correct? Okay.
Then we're on page 5, and the only highlighted is transportation and lodging reimbursement available, and I think we agreed that we know we have some ability to negotiate, but we're not gonna put it in this.
Well, this question was specific to the interview though, not to the, so if you would like me to interview for the position and I currently live in Santa Clara, California, and you're requesting a final interview to be in person, does the board, does the county have interest, ability in providing for transportation and lodging for the purposes of that interview? So this is different than the actual position.
Is that normal?
Yes.
Typically, larger organizations do provide that
Mhm.
if they're interested in the candidate.
But it would only be for final interviews. Initial interviews would be Zoom if they don't want to.
So as it was discussed last time, that initial interviews, that it is the choice of the candidate to be remote or in person. And in person, the costs are more, are by the candidate. But if you are requiring in person only for your final interview, that's where this question arises.
I think that we need to do that.
Okay, everybody in agreement?
I think we should give them a room at the homestead, then they'll be sure.
Everybody comfortable? I don't think we need to vote on that. I think everybody by consensus. So now I think that takes us through the brochure, and we have a cover memo with the dates that we all agreed on. I don't know if those were all checked with the clerk's office for availability of the room or anything. Laurel, do you know if these dates work for meetings?
I don't. But we can certainly, the board always takes priority on room schedule.
Well, then
Well,
let's
that's
look
nice.
at, this is May 25, and we're doing what it says we're supposed to do on May 25. We said we wanted a meeting on 5/31 or about there for a special session focused on resume scoring. And we were to get to math.
So for that next meeting, to be able to, I'll clean this up, resend it out and have it as a final version for the board to formally approve. That I think would be in order. Also, the board will need to formally approve. We can also send out the existing job description. We'll need to have formal approval of that job description on Tuesday. And then just specific to those interview questions, just to begin, if time allows, to begin a conversation about interview questions, because as a best practice, to be able to have consistent questions from candidate to candidate, that you don't, that obviously there is some wiggle room, but the vast majority of your questioning needs to be consistent, and to be able to script that in terms of what commissioner will ask the question along the line. So there's just some conversation there.
We didn't set a time for the 5/31 meeting, I don't think.
Yes, we did.
Did we?
Yeah, I have it.
10 o'clock?
My calendar is
Are
10.
you set for 10?
Mhm.
Everybody able to make that? We still got that on your calendar?
Yes.
10 o'clock on the 31st?
Yes.
Chairman Wassel, I do have the signature form here if you would like to take signatures for it today.
Thank you. What else do we have to do today, Matt?
I have wonderful feedback. It won't take me very long to provide back what I believe to be a final document for your review and approval on Tuesday. And I don't anticipate, but be certain to look at that job description too, and if there are anything major that's associated with that. But those are 2 approval items on Tuesday, and then I'll get the ball rolling on some copy editing assistance so we can get this out the door next week.
Everybody has a copy of the job description, right? So we'll bring that back on Tuesday with our edits and suggestions. Darcy, just to be sure, will you send us?
I will email that out, yes.
I believe we gave him our edits because he's bringing the final.
I haven't received, I didn't receive anything on job description.
Oh, you haven't?
No, that there was a discussion, an informal discussion that there might be some changes based on the past meeting.
Oh, you were
So
just describing the job.
this is just the marketing packet, but the formal job description by which the county has,
Okay.
that's a
Darcy
little
will send that
different.
out and we'll make whatever edits, personal edits we want, to bring that back, prepared to discuss and approve the job description on Tuesday. And the criteria for how we want to score resumes and experience. Okay? Anything else for the good of the order on this issue? Any public comment from our 2 staff people maybe? Darcy, you want any public comments? Any commissioner comments?
Thank you for this work.
Absolutely, thank you.
Marcia?
And I just want to say that Iowa Valley was here yesterday and Monday with their Reach to Meet open house, and it went incredibly well. They're the fixed wireless company that's coming in, that's going to serve a lot of our people right away. And they had a tremendous turnout. And I stopped in last night again to see how it was going. And she said that they have had so many emails they can hardly keep up with it. So that's outstanding. So we're really pleased to see that kind of support. And thank you all for the good PR. It paid off. People knew.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments? I have one. I was asked to check with legal and chat on the ability of the chair to call a recess. And the chair does have the ability to call a recess. If it's challenged before the recess happens, there must be a vote of the commission. So I can call one, but if anybody wants to call a point of order, then we need to vote on that, and it takes a majority of the board to allow the recess to continue. Yes.
And did you pose the question and when a motion was on the floor? To be able to call a recess? Did you ask the question in that way? When there was a motion on the floor and support, and our next step should have been to vote. Did you ask the question if you could take the recess at that point in the meeting?
No, I asked the question if I was uncomfortable as chair with the conduct of the meeting. The disrespect, getting into staff issues, getting into issues that I thought shouldn't be expressed here. It is my prerogative to call, but you can always challenge that.
And I think I did. My question.
You challenged it when we came back, I believe. But now we have that, and in fact, we'll add that if you want to, when you're comfortable with it, into our board rules, so it's written right in there. Okay? I just want to make sure you knew that I had done, I checked it out, because I understand that there was concern about that. So if I call it, and I won't do it very often, but if I call a recess, and you disagree with me, please challenge before the recess, and we will conduct a vote. Okay? Thank you. Anything else? I think we had a good meeting.
We did. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.